Welcome, Mark. Welcome, everybody. We are so privileged today, and in the way that we're moving forward from today, as recognizing what new is being born in all of us. And we're here because we have recognized something of a new species in every one of us. And the reason that I've invited Marc Gafni to give us his view of really what's emerging, what are the new memes, which are comparable to the new genes in creating a new species. New memes create the new culture. And he's been bringing together the new memes that actually populate our Wheel 2.0, so that when we have this third session with Mark, we're going to have some sense of the whole system of which we are a part. And because all my life I have sought the memes that create the new reality, and that's what we've been doing here. And then we will continue with our codes, where we are practicing from the codes, which are the new memes for the universal humanity. We welcome you, Jean. I want you all to know that I am in Placitas, Mexico, with Jean White Eagle and her husband, John. And we've been having an absolutely beautiful time. So I'm going to get started right now. Thank you, Jean, for all your hospitality. Welcome to you, Mark. And 1, 2, 3, go.
Away we go. Barbara, what a delight to be here with you, evolutionary partner, and to be with you, Jean and John, and the intergalactic attractive field down there, right? And let's make this happen. We are in our third and our final week of this mini-series within Awaken the New Species. And what we're really here to do is to talk about, and if we can get Wheel 2.0 on the screen, Jim, that would be completely awesome. And Sherwood, great to be with you. And let's see if we make that wheel as big as we can. Looks pretty big. Is there any way we can make it any bigger? That's pretty big. I mean, wheel's big enough. See if I can make it any bigger on my screen here. We'll work with that. That's perfect. So what we've been doing is we've been talking about this Wheel 2.0, because the Wheel 2.0, a wheel that Barbara and I created together, right? Wheel 2.0, Wheel of Cocreation 2.0, is, we think, the best map of the new human and the new humanity. And we've been talking the first 2 weeks about what we might call the inner code of the map, right? There's kind of the outer code of the map. There's the inner code of the map. And the inner code of the map is what we call on the left hand of the map. We call it on the left hand, we talk about our crises of birth. And now these things are going to begin to make sense in a whole new way. What kind of crisis? And we'll just do this as a way of just not going through all of the 15 tenets we've talked about up till now, but just as a kind of fragrant review. Our crisis of birth, what kind of crisis? A crisis of intimacy, right? So in other words, reality is driven by desire. The desire of reality is for the progressive deepening of intimacies. Evolution is the evolution of intimacies. Reality is eros, all the way up and all the way down. Eros is the desire of reality to move towards ever deeper contact and ever larger wholes. That desire lives all the way up and all the way down the evolutionary chain. That desire lives in us. That eros awakens in us, right? That's what we call cosmoerotic humanism. Everyone capture that? We're on the left-hand side of the wheel. Cosmoerotic humanism says that when we awaken to desire living as us, we're lived as desire. The evolutionary impulse feels like something. When we describe it as the evolutionary impulse, we're describing the exterior. But the interior of the evolutionary impulse is the movement, the desire to create ever deepening intimacies. And when that desire awakens on a human level, and we seek actually to move towards ever higher intimacies, right, then we become cosmoerotic humanists. We are engaging in this new vision of reality called cosmoerotic humanism, which is no less and much more compelling, right, and precisely needed at this moment in time than the early humanism that began in the Renaissance. So we're in a new Renaissance, and this new Renaissance is birthing a new humanism, but this evolutionary humanism, right, this cosmoerotic humanism is not external. It's not just we realize there's evolution's moving somewhere. We realize evolution's moving somewhere through me, in me, as me, and through me. I am evolution. The evolutionary impulse awakens as me in person, and therefore the leading edge of evolution, driving towards ever deeper forms of intimacy, right, is awakening in me. Now, that's critical because the existential crises that we face at this moment in time, which for the first time in history can move us to dystopia, to Mad Max, Blade Runner, Hunger Games, to use some cinematic images, and worse, stems from a global intimacy disorder. So the only way to heal a global intimacy disorder, which is the particular form of the crisis of intimacy, is to birth the new story. And the new story is the progressive deepening of intimacies. Because what is the new story? It's the bringing together of different parts from the different wisdom traditions, psychology, evolutionary science, the great wisdom traditions, anthropology, right? Moving them, bringing them together in a whole greater than the sum of the parts. That's what a new intimacy is. And so the new story, telling the new story is the new intimacy. What's an intimacy? Intimacy generates emergence. Emergence of what? Of a new whole. What's a new whole? A new whole is a new configuration of the intimate parts into a new vision, a new whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. So what is the new story? The new story is the new intimacy, right? The new whole, greater than the sum of the parts, that has the capacity to heal the global intimacy disorder, which is our crisis, which is now birthing the new story, which is the new human and the new humanity. And the new story is cosmoerotic humanism, a planetary awakening in love through unique self synergies and symphonies. Wow. Right? So in other words, you get this is all the we're in the wheel now, right? We're actually unpacking the memes of the wheel. We're unpacking the interior memes of the wheel. And if I would say wheel 1.0 focused on exteriors, wheel 2.0 focuses on exteriors and interiors. Right? There's an enormous focus on interiors. Now we're gonna now take the huge leaps. In a certain sense, week 1 and 2, we're just saying hello. We were just saying hi. Right? First 15 tenets, right? We did this, right? Kind of, but now it all comes together. And of course, it's a perfect time to come together because we're now on the eve of Yom Kippur, which some of you may know, which is the Hebrew day of at-one-ment. And of course, at-one-ment is a form of intimacy. And we're in that particular time before the setting of the sun when people call to heal broken intimacies, right? People call to ask for forgiveness, right? Yom Kippur is a day of reset. When people call each other and say, oh my God, I have wronged you, I'm sorry. Right? Would you forgive me? Could we restore our intimacy? Could we reset? Which of course is an expression of this progressive deepening of intimacies that we're describing. Yom Kippur is in effect a technology of intimacy. And so for those of you who are in the Yom Kippur fragrance, welcome. Yom Kippur is a universal holy day. It's for all of us, right? It's that moment when we can reset. So I just want to invite everyone in the most intimate and personal way. If there's someone that any of us, right, has written out of our hearts or written out of our lives, if there's a place that we're being right, we're holding on to being right, but we're so miserable for it. This is the moment to give up being right. It's the moment to let it go. It's a day of restoring intimacy. So it's a special moment that, Barbara, we're together, right, as, you know, we're accessing, your father wouldn't believe it. You're talking to a rabbi on Yom Kippur, right, on the internet, right, about Yom Kippur. What happened to my good daughter from Scarsdale? What did I tell her?
Well, no. My Jewish genes are all awakening.
Amen.
I have the Jewish genes. They've just been hidden until recently.
Exactly. We're going to awaken our Jewish genes and our Buddhist genes and our secular humanist genes and our Kashmir Saivite genes and our Hindu genes and all of our genies. Okay. So let's now take this. We're now going to go to the next step, and we're going to add basically 7 tenets of intimacy, and then hopefully we're going to have time for any and all questions, comments, and all other good things. And I want to just, I didn't do a recap this week because I knew that we don't quite have enough time to do that. right? But what I do want to do, just to honor, right, all of us, is just take a moment, right, to set the resonant field together. Barbara, in our evolutionary church every week, which I'm sure you all know about, sets the resonant field every week, which is the most important part of church. So I just want to take a second and set the resonant field with a small chant to honor Yom Kippur, right, to honor, right, Barbara in this beautiful space, to honor the awakening of the new species and the new human, right, the chant that rises up from the Wheel of Cocreation 2.0. And because it's Yom Kippur, let's, with everyone's permission, let's take a universal word that originates from the Hebrew tradition, which is the word shalom, S-H-A-L-O-M. And shalom is, of course, a word that's about intimacy, right? Shalom means two opposing ideas create an intimacy between them that creates a whole larger than the sum of the parts. That's actually what shalom means. Shalom means wholeness. Shalem, which means parts come together that seem to oppose each other, but when those opposing parts live in relationship to each other without canceling each other out, they create a new wholeness that's greater than the sum of the parts. Isn't that beautiful? Right? Whenever, right? It's beautiful, right? Whenever you take a part and you isolate it from the whole and you make it idolatrous, right? It's the only part. I'll just give you guys just one simple example just to get it for a second, then we'll chant, and then we'll do our next 7 tenets of intimacy, then we'll open for holy conversation. But just to get that idea, one example, give you one example. Abortion. So there's two sides to the abortion conflict, pro-life and pro-choice. But of course, how does that setting up of the issue actually violate, right, shalom? Right? Ignorance always has a partial relationship to reality. It means I take one value, I free it from its relationship to another value. They don't actually live in dialectical relationship, which creates a larger whole. So I'm pro-life. Really? What, you think all the people on the other side are anti-life? Right? And that you've picked a value and you've said, I'm pro-life. So now my only value is life. Now choice, not a value. Right? Now I've taken life out of its dialectical relationship with the other part, choice, so in their dialectical dance, they can't create a larger whole. Or I'm pro-choice, right? Choice, right? Choice. Choice is my value. But I've taken choice out of its relationship, right, to the other part, which is the other value, which is life, so they can't dance together and create a larger whole. So when we frame a conflict as pro-life or pro-choice, what we're suggesting is that those two values are diametrically opposed to each other, right? We take a value, we isolate it, we decontextualize it from the larger field, and we turn it into an idolatry. You know what we call that, friends? That's extremism. Extremism means you can't get enough of your value, right? You've got one value, that's your value. You can't get enough of your one value. That's what it means to be extremist, right? Right? To be intimate means, right, I have the values dance with each other. They become intimate. They become choice and life. They dance with each other. And then a larger ethical position emerges, which is a new intimacy, and it's a new whole greater than the sum of the parts. Does everyone get that? That's shalom. That's the actual Kabbalistic meaning, right, of shalom. Yay?
Yeah, good.
So let's chant that, my friends. And then we're going to dive into the Wheel of Cocreation, which is the map of awakening the new human and the new humanity. Beloved B, I could not be more delighted to be any place in the world than with you here, with so much respect and so much honor and so much delight. Thank you. Shalom. 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 Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We always say thank you. Shalom. 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 Let's do it together, holy brothers and sisters. Hey, Shalom. Hey, Shalom. Hey, Shalom. Hey, Shalom. Last time together. Hey, Shalom. Hey, Shalom. Hey, Shalom. Hey, Shalom.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Beautiful.
Amen. The resonant field. So principle 15, tenet 15. And where tenet 15 comes up on the wheel, so I really want to be, and Barbara pointed out to me very lovingly that last week we didn't spend enough time showing people that it was actually in the wheel itself. So I want to correct that. Thank you, love, for that pointing out. So everything I'm saying is in the wheel. So let's take a look. I'm now in the left side of the wheel, right? We just talked already. We did a quick review without going through the 15 tenets that we did in week 1 and 2, but we quickly reviewed our crisis of birth, the new human and the new humanity, cosmoerotic humanism. Now we're at unique self synergies and symphonies. We're going to get to that later today. By the end, by about 30 minutes, we're going to be there. Drop down where it says, I'm a unique configuration of intimacy desired by all of reality. Does everyone see that on the left-hand side? I'm a unique, and underneath it says impulse of evolution. So the impulse of evolution, awakening in me, is, or awakens as, or through my unique self. And unique self is a key part of this wheel. It's one of the shifts from wheel 1.0 to wheel 2.0. And if you'll take a look, you'll see, right, that in the 4th rung of the wheel, right, it actually says unique self. And there's a whole wheel that goes around the 4th rung, which says unique self, unique need, unique pleasure, unique intimacy, right? Everyone see that? Right? That's the 4th unique story. So we're going to talk about that dimension of the wheel, because the 15th tenet of intimacy is, friends, holy brothers and sisters, the 15th tenet of intimacy is, and if my numbering is off by 1 from last week, I apologize, but the 15th tenet of intimacy is, all intimacy is unique. That's unbelievably important, right? We think that intimacy means sameness, but actually, intimacy is in the dialectical balance between sameness and uniqueness, right? If we're just the same, we're bored, right? If we're only different, right, and there's no sameness, there's no common language. But it's in the tension between sameness and differentiation that intimacy lives. Intimacy always has a dimension of uniqueness. Intimacy is always unique. So watch this. This is gorgeous. Here's the definition of unique self. The principle is all intimacy is unique, meaning as evolution moves towards the progressive deepening of intimacies, remember, our principles, reality is not a fact, it's a story. It's not an ordinary story, it's a love story, right? There's a plot to the love story. The plot to the love story is the evolution of intimacy. Here's another subplot, right? The progressive deepening of intimacies, the move towards the evolution of intimacy, the move towards greater and greater intimacy is at the same time a move towards greater and greater uniqueness. Beautiful, right? So we're not just moving towards more complexity, we're moving towards more pristine uniqueness. Now, of course, those two trajectories, those two plot lines, and this outrageous love story of reality converge because all intimacy is unique. There is no intimacy that's not unique. So, for example, let's say that Barbara and I decided we were going to sit in silence and do eye gazing, right? So that would have one quality. The silence would have a very particular quality. But if Barbara then sat with Sherwood, right, and did eye gazing, right? Or Barbara decided she was going to sit tonight, right, with Jeannie and do eye gazing, even though there was no speech, the qualities that lived, the quality and the space in between Barbara and myself, between Barbara and Sherwood, between Barbara and Jeannie would be different. Does everyone get that? Right? There's a different quality of intimacy. Why? Because, number 16, because what reality does when reality moves towards the progressive deepening of intimacies, reality ultimately manifests a unique configuration of intimacy that's called you. In other words, who are you? Who are you? You are a unique configuration of intimacy. And that's 16. 17, your unique configuration of intimacy has a unique quality of intimacy. Now stay with that. What do we mean a unique configuration of intimacy? Well, just start. That's number 16, 10 at 16. What do we mean by unique configuration of intimacy? Well, just think about it, right? You've got 50 plus trillion cells in your body that are actually dancing with each other in a unique configuration of intimacy. That's actually what it means, right? Your cellular structure is definitionally, scientifically, a unique configuration of intimacy. Your atomic structure, which is underneath, as it were, your cellular structure, which adheres in your cellular structure, which is transcended and included by your cellular structure, your atomic structure is a unique configuration of intimacy. That's what you are. Like, what you are is, right, a unique configuration of intimacy intended by reality, generated by reality, unlike ever that ever was, is, or will be, unlike any other configuration of intimacy that ever was, is, or will be. Now that's shocking. So who are you? Who am I? You're a unique configuration of intimacy. Now stay with me. Right? That's 16, 17, but as a unique configuration of intimacy, right, you're actually a unique quality of intimacy. So Barbara-ness is a unique quality of intimacy. She's got a unique taste, right? Right? She has a unique perspective. And that her unique perspective and her unique taste, right, generate her unique quality. And so what's a unique self? So stay with me. So unique self basically is the end product of a particular equation, right? The end result, the end quotient of the equation is unique self. So what's the equation? True self, or essence, right? Total number of true selves in the world is 1. True self is the singular that has no plural, right? True self is the field, right, of pure potentiality. True self is being. True self is essence. So true self plus your unique perspective plus your unique quality of intimacy equals your unique self. Does everyone get that? It's beautiful. So your true self, the field of undifferentiated beingness, the field of pure potentiality, the 0 point field, right? That field of ayin, the field in which Atman is Brahman, right? That field of pure potentiality plus, right, your unique perspective, which the field generates, plus your unique quality of intimacy that's generated directly from the field equals your unique self. So the field is seamless, but it's not featureless. Isn't that gorgeous? Right? You're like, oh, right. So you don't want to become one. You don't want to lose your uniqueness. Uniqueness is not, as virtually every Enlightenment teacher taught falsely for 25 years, right? 30 years in America. Uniqueness is not a quality of your separate self that you want to overcome as you merge with the impersonal one, whether you call it true self or authentic self. No, there's a quality of kind of distinction or specialness that's your separate self that you overcome when you realize you're part of the one, but then it reappears again at a higher level. So it's kind of like this. If you want to get it, there's personal level 1, separate self, skin encapsulated ego. Level 2, true self, we're all part of the one. Level 3, the personal reappears, which is your unique quality of intimacy intended by reality, right? That unique quality of intimacy intended by reality, right, which is your true self plus your unique quality of intimacy plus your unique perspective, that's your unique self. Then, last step, but when you get a larger perspective, you become intimate with the larger field. You move past your narrow unique self. You realize that your unique self is intimate, lives in a larger field. Your unique self lives in an evolutionary context. Then you have your evolutionary unique self, right? Then you're living with an evolutionary relationship to life. Then you realize I am evolution, right? Then you realize that the progressive deepening of intimacy actually is happening in me, as me, and through me. And that I am the leading edge of the evolution of intimacy myself. Okay, wow. Now we begin to have a vision of the new human that the wheel is pointing towards, right? The new human is, right, is the realization. The human realizes, who am I? I'm a unique quality of intimacy, right? The human being says, right, who am I? I am an irreducibly unique expression of the love intimacy and love desire, of the love intelligence and love beauty. That is the initiating and animating eros and intimacy of all that is. That lives in me, as me, and through me. That never was, is, or will be again ever other than through me. And as such, right, as the leading edge of evolutionary intimacy awakening in me, as such, I have a unique perspective. And I have a unique quality of intimacy. And that unique perspective and unique quality of intimacy taken together generate my unique gift. And my unique gift addresses a unique need of intimacy in my own unique circle of intimacy and influence that can be addressed by no one that ever was, is, or will be other than me alone. Wow, that's the new human, right? That's the new human. The new human says, oh my God, I have a unique gift of intimacy to give, which is the natural expression of my unique configuration of intimacy that can be given that by no one that ever was, is, or will be. And the nature of the intimate universe is such that all of reality needs my gift. Reality intended me to meet a need of intimacy that can be met by me in a way that no one that ever was, is, or will be other than myself can meet. And when I awaken to that amor living in me, that love intelligence living in me, and I connect it, right, with the powers, right, of technology and high tech infused with evolutionary love, then I realize I am Homo amor universalis, and I am a new species, right? And then the game begins. Okay, so let's go to the next step. Let's take a breath. Believe me, I know we could stop here and have a big conversation. We could, but I owe you in my covenant with you and with Barbara, I owe you kind of to complete these tenets because we want to get the big picture. And I know that in the human potential world, we are gorgeous and loving, and we're slightly impatient, right? Right? And I'm that way also, okay? So, but in physics, we wait to get all the different dimensions of the equation before we work it out. So this is the interior physics of reality. So I ask you so gently, so tenderly, so lovingly, be patient. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I can lay out some of the dimensions of the equation so we can actually get to the right result, okay? Because what we're doing here is not small. We're actually evolving the source code of consciousness and culture, which is the evolution of love. We're actually doing that together right now. We're actually bringing together the new memes, right? The new genes. We're articulating the new story, which is itself a configuration of intimacy. Okay, so 19. We said that we're working here on the left side of the wheel, right? All the way to number 5, we're working, right? This statement, I'm a unique configuration of intimacy. So I think we've explained that, right? I'm a unique configuration of intimacy, desired by all of reality. Well, let's put a couple of pieces together, just so we see, right, how the story works. So what's a cell? A cell is a configuration of intimacy. It has a whole range of molecules. Those molecules come together in a particular configuration of intimacy. Their relationship deepens. Those molecules that are not alive, right, in this new configuration of intimacy, which is a new whole greater than the sum of the parts, in their deepened relationship, voila, the molecules come alive, there's a cell. So life is generated by a new configuration of intimacy that deepens the relationship between the parts. And every evolutionary breakthrough, Barbara loves to talk about, I love to talk about, Barbara talks about it in Conscious Evolution in a beautiful passage, right, about the movement from single-celled to multi-celled organisms. What is that? There's a crisis of intimacy. There's a crisis of life. And then that crisis, right, generates a new configuration of intimacy. Why? Because the movement of reality is desire, right? Why didn't the single-celled organisms just die off and go home? Right, we're done. Well, because there's an inherent desire, right, for life, and life needs new intimacies. So that desire, right, that generates and drives reality right, that desire, right, is energized by a crisis, and it births a new configuration of intimacy, which over an extended period of time, excuse me, was the movement from single cell to multi-celled organisms, right? That's always how it works. Whenever there's a crisis of intimacy, we generate, right, a new configuration of intimacy. Now, stay around with me for a second. Let's hang it. Let's go deep in here. Okay, is everyone ready for a dive? Do we have a drum roll in the house? We need a drum roll. Drum roll in the house. Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. This is fantastic. So, just like evolution awakens to itself through me, so conscious evolution becomes alive in me, right? The entire field's always conscious, right? But in me, it's unconscious. The human being is unaware that evolution's conscious. So when I awaken and I realize I'm an evolutionary unique self, right? And as I'm living in an evolutionary context, I begin to have an evolutionary relationship to life. My unique self, right, serves an evolutionary purpose, right? It is the leading edge because I'm a unique quality of intimacy. I'm a unique configuration of intimacy. When that happens, then we move from unconscious uniqueness to conscious uniqueness. Isn't that great? Right? And I actually realize, I actually get a sense of what my uniqueness is. I was talking to Barbara, our mutual friend, Don Beck, on the phone, right, not so long ago, and Don had read Unique Self, right, that book I wrote in 2011, and he said, that book is the basic description of the movement from tier 1 to tier 2, right, in spiral dynamics, right, Claire Graves' great work that Don and Chris Cowan, right, unpacked, right, the movement from the first tier of consciousness to the second tier is when actually you become aware of the implications of your uniqueness. You become aware that unique self means I'm actually intended by reality, but it's more than I'm intended. And I want to really get this idea in the wheel. What does it say in the wheel on the left side? It says I'm a unique configuration of intimacy desired by all of reality. What does that mean? That's a big deal. What does it mean I'm desired by all of reality? Well, and go to the tenets of intimacy from the first week. What drives reality, right? Quarks desire to come together to create a subatomic particle. Subatomic particles desire contact, and they create atoms. Atoms desire contact, and in unique configurations of interlocking, right, relationship, they create new intimacies, which are molecules, and molecules desire contact. Excuse me, so it's desire that moves the whole story. So if I am, as a human being, I'm a unique self, I'm a unique configuration of intimacy, what does that mean? It means that I am a field of unique desire. It means that reality is literally in this very second, if you want to actually have an experience of enlightenment, right? Don't meditate just on awareness. That will give you one dimension of enlightenment. But meditate on the allurement motivated by desire that's holding you together in this very nanosecond as the unique configuration of intimacy that you are, and feel into that desire that's being poured into your unique structure literally in this very nanosecond. When you feel that desire, you're actually feeling reality desiring you, then you've actually accessed the consciousness of a saint. That is the consciousness of a saint. That's what a saint knows. Like, wow, right? And I'm not dependent on someone else desiring me. Are you for real? Right? Are you for real? Jack doesn't desire me. I'm devastated. Hello, friends. Jack, we love you. Get lost. Right? Right? You were a lovely man for a time, and you were a beautiful prism to refract to me through the prism of your Jackness, right? The ontological fact that reality desires me. But you're not the source of the desire. The desire of reality is being refracted through you. But if you actually reify Jack as the source of reality, so we call that idolatry. That's what idolatry is. You get that? Idolatry is I've reified Jack. And now if Jack doesn't desire anymore, I'll poison him. Right? 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 If Jeannie, oh my God, I'm with Jeannie and she's now sleeping with someone else and my name's O.J. Simpson, it's going to be bad. You get what I mean? Because desires someone else. But that's why idolatry is so problematic. Right? You get it? I mean, it's the tragedy. That was the American tragedy. All of America sits transfixed, right? Right? When Nicole is murdered in this horrific, terrible story, right? But Nicole is murdered because she desired someone else. So as long as Nicole became desire, So the experience that I would live without being desired is so devastating that I actually have a spontaneous age regression. It's called a neural hijacking, and I go into a murderous rage. That's what's called a crime of passion. But a crime of passion doesn't come from having passion, it comes from a lack of passion, right? You get it? In other words, a crime of passion means I've located that person as the source of all passion and desire, and now that they've actually dissociated or alienated from me, I'm left without passion and desire, which puts me into a murderous rage, in which case I go to violate all intimacies. That's actually the structure of crime. But actually, that's not the truth. That's why this is the new human and the new humanity. That's why Barbara and I are saying that this transforms the source code. These are not clever new age words. This is actually a shifting in the very structure of how we experience ourselves. In other words, I am a unique, we're reading the wheel. Everything here is the wheel. I'm reading the wheel. The words are in front of me, left-hand side. I am a unique configuration of intimacy. So we get that. But here's part two. I'm desired by all of reality. Wow. Wow. Right? That's actually, but that's not a new age proclamation. That's not an affirmation. It's not a declaration. It's actually a core ontological truth of reality. That's shocking. It's just a shocking, beyond imagination truth, right? To actually experience the fact that I'm actually desired by reality itself. Does everyone get that? Right? Does everyone get that? Like, oh my God, let's just take 1 second, okay, to hold this together, right? Let's take 1 second. If you're up for this, right, and you're willing to kind of, let's give it a little effort. Let's actually write into the chat box, I am desired by all of reality. And to actually register that. I am desired by all of reality. First person. Let's see if we can grab it in the first person. I am, Barbara says, desired by all of reality. Jane, I am desired by all of reality. Alana, I am desired by all of reality. It's only when I say it that it becomes true. Lisa, John B., right? I am desired. Susan, Lynn, right? I am desired by all of reality. This is not a good time to be a spectator. Right? Do not be let's get on the court together and actually make this true in the proclamation. When I actually say it, something happens and shifts in my source code. Right? We are together. We are evolutionary evangelicals, and we're here to bring the good news to each other. And the good news is, this is really good, I'm desired by all of reality. It's shocking. Right? And again, I can sit on the side, I can spectate it, or I can say, this is the moment in my life I'm going to get on the court. It's scary, right, Alana? It's scary. It's totally scary, right? It's shocking, right? So if you haven't written it yet, and you're kind of one of the holy, gorgeous spectator people, I just want to invite you. Come on the court. Like the first time you're coming on the court. Come on the court and actually experience that. I am desired, right? Thank you. Catane 84845, right? And I am, right? You've got the I am there. Anyone else? Anyone else look at it? It's beautiful, Lisa says. Right? I am desired. Now, when I write it, it becomes true in a way that it's not true. You might think, okay, I got this. Why should I write it? We have a basic principle, both in mysticism and in neuroscience, that when you write something, it becomes true at a different level. Isn't that true, everybody? We know there's an entire chapter in a book by my colleague, Bessel van der Kolk, right, who wrote a book called The Body Keeps Score. It's a very important book. They did a very good New York Times book review on it, and it talks about the neuroscience of writing. Yes, see being, right? I am right. So when you write it, right, in mysticism, we say, in the 10 Commandments, in the ancient text, it says, I am the Lord your God. So the word I in Hebrew is Anochi, is the Hebrew word I. And so in honor of Yom Kippur, we'll give a little Hebrew wisdom teaching honoring Barbara's Jewish genes. So the word Anochi has 4 letters. 4 letters, Aleph, Nun, Chaf, Yud, which is an acronym for Aleph, Ana, I in Aramaic, Nafshai, I, my soul, my heart, Katif, Jahift, I, my soul, I write, I love. Isn't that beautiful? So in writing something, it becomes true, right? I was like, wow, right? I am desired by all of reality. And so therefore, there's no one in the world can make me feel, if they don't desire me, I'm not desired. I'm desired. And when I say desired, I want to make this really clear. Okay, you think I'm about to say not sexually. I'm going to say the opposite. Sexual desire is a pale reflection of the actual ultimate desire in which God yearns for us, right? The sexual just touches right? The bare outer garb of the depth of erotic desire for which reality yearns for me. Literally, it's that knowing that created a saint. It's that knowing that created an avatar, right? Oh my God, right? I know my goddess, right? Right, okay. So let's go to the next step. Let's breathe for a second. Let's breathe that in. Let's breathe that in, okay? Let's breathe that in. Let's go to 20. Let's go to 20. Let's put this together. I mean, it's gorgeous, right? It's gorgeous. So now, if two people come together, if two unique selves come together, so what does that mean? So I want to put a couple of pieces together. So in 20, I want to remind us of an earlier principle 1. In principle 1, we said the infinite is the intimate. Remember that? The infinite is intimate. The infinite desires intimacy. Does everyone remember that? That was the first principle. So now let's bring that full scale around in principle 20, which we alluded to last week, but let's now explicate it in a sentence, which is, and this is one of our core structures in evolutionary church that you're all invited to be with Barbara and I every week. And I know Barbara wants to make that special invitation this week. She told Lisa, right? So she'll talk about it later, but really everyone's invited. We have this gorgeous evolutionary church every week. And one of our principles is that God's not only the infinity of power. This is our principle 20, tenet of intimacy 20 right now. God's not only the infinity of power, God is the infinity of intimacy. Isn't that gorgeous? God is the infinity of intimacy. Meaning, if you find in your life, let's do an exercise together. Let's find in our life, find the most intimate moment you've ever experienced in your life. The most intimate moment you've ever experienced, emotional intimacy, existential intimacy, spiritual intimacy, psychological intimacy, embodied intimacy, right? Put them all together. Maybe there was one moment they were all together, right? Whatever it is. Now, exponentialize that moment into infinity, and you begin to get the vague fragrance of the divine. And of course, we can't exponentialize it. It's beyond our capacity. Right? God's the infinity of intimacy. Okay? Now let's put this together. All right? Now, principle 21, we're going to put this together, 21. So if I'm a unique self, this is so shocking. It's so gorgeous. Right? If I'm a unique self and I'm a unique quality of intimacy, and God is the infinity of intimacy, then I'm God's unique intimacy. That's pretty good to be, right? That's not a bad thing to be, right, my friends? That's not a bad thing to be, right? Who are you? Who am I? I'm God's unique intimacy. Hey, I'll go with that, right? Hallelujah, right? Hallelujah, right? What's your birthday? Your birthday is the day that God decided, I'm not willing to live in reality without being intimate with you. That's what your birthday is, right? Barbara has a birthday coming up in December, right? Right? Your birthday is, it's the day that God decided, I can't bear to live without being intimate with you. And here's the crazy thing, my friends. Here's the crazy thing. That's not a metaphor. That's what's crazy about this, right? Crazy in this holy way. None of this is a metaphor. This is ontology. This is actually the ontological structure of reality. That's what changes everything, okay? So now, that's 21, right? I'm God's unique intimacy, right? And 21A, what your birthday means, okay? Now 22, drum roll. We're hearing a drum roll here? I'm hoping so. Drum roll, right? Okay, here it is. So when I get together with you, so I'm a unique quality of intimacy, and you're a unique quality of intimacy, right? So when we get together, we create something new. So when there's two unique qualities of intimacy, and they create a new we space, a new evolutionary we space, a new we space of evolutionary intimacy, because an evolutionary we space is a new quality of intimacy. So what are we creating? You got to really hold on to your sit. This is so shocking. It takes your breath away, and it's so obvious. We're creating a new God, right? Because God's the infinity of intimacy. And so God discloses uniquely as me and as you. And when me and you come together, we create a new synergy. And what's a new synergy? A new synergy is a new quality of intimacy. It's a new whole greater than the sum of its parts, right? It's a new emergence, because intimacy always generates new emergence. That's one of our earlier principles. So when you and I get together, we create a new God. Really? Really? Wow. Right? Wow. Right? And we don't create a new God only when a new baby is born. A new baby is born in the very experience of actually joining in this new we space. The new baby is already born. Right? The new God is born, which is why we have to be loyal to our friendship. Loyalty is not the Godfather. It's not a regressive loyalty of a mafia-like quality, right? Which the liberal world mocks as regressive. Loyalty is actually a supreme value. I'm loyal to what? I'm loyal to the new God. Right? We've loved each other. We've created a new quality of intimacy. That's a new God. So I worship at the altar of that new God. I'm loyal to that intimacy. Wow. That's 22. 23. Well, we're on a roll. 23. So what's evil? What's evil in the world? Evil is always a failure of intimacy. That's what it is. Evil is a failure of intimacy. Without this understanding of evil, right, there's no way to actually talk about how to repair the world. Right? If the world's not an intimate universe, if the world's not a field of intimacy, well, then there's no such thing as evil. What's the problem with evil? Some people killed each other. Why not? Right? People are survival machines struggling to survive. Of course they should kill each other. What else would they do? Right? But it's only when I get that evolution is the progressive deepening of intimacies. And when intimacy awakens as human beings, we actually begin to see each other. And we see and honor each other's unique quality of intimacy. And we know that unique quality of intimacy participates in the divine, who is the infinity of intimacy. Actually killing a person is a violation. That's what we call evil. Right? Evil is a failure of intimacy. Right? Wow. Does everyone get that? Right? And it's without that, you can't talk about evil. And that's why Camus, or Camus, I can never pronounce his name. Barbara was in France in 1945. God knows what, right? Oh my gosh.
Camus.
Camus, thank you. Camus, right? And Barbara, you're going to have to tell us one day the real story, the unwritten Barbara Marx Hubbard Paris story, 1945. Because I've got a feeling that's really interesting. So we'll see if we can get Barbara to do that, right? But in 1945, right, Camus writes the book The Stranger, which opens with the line, "Mother died today." Or was it yesterday? Because it doesn't matter. Because there's no intimacy. And so later in the book, Meursault, am I pronouncing that right, Barbara? Meursault.
Yeah, perfect.
Meursault, right, goes to kill a man on the beach. He wants to see whether he can. Because there's no intimacy. So why wouldn't you kill someone? And he's struggling, right, to actually, right, find a way to affirm a world in which evil is a genuine possibility. It can't be unless you affirm the ontological dignity of a field of intimacy. Because all the evil is a failure of intimacy. Does everyone get that? It's like, wow, okay, 24. 24, let's bring this together here, okay? And I'm going to make sure I'm completely committed to have time, tons of time for questions, okay? Let's go to the next step. So we live, let's move down, right? Impulsive evolution, right? On the left side of the wheel. We say that there's a self-organizing universe. What does that mean? It means that the universe self-organizes, right, to higher and higher levels of intimacy. That's the way the universe works. The universe self-organizes, right, to higher and higher levels of intimacy. So what's happening now? So we're at a moment where the universe has, for the first time, self-organized to a new quality of intimacy. And that new quality of intimacy is a new form of what Barbara and I call evolutionary intimacy. And I gave the first weekend on evolutionary intimacy maybe in 2009, right, in San Francisco, right? And what's evolutionary intimacy? Evolutionary intimacy means when I have a genuine sense of intimacy and a felt sense, right? Intimacy means, remember, I feel you, you feel me. Feel you feeling me. Feel you feeling me, feeling you. Feel you feeling me, feeling you, right? So intimacy, one of our earlier principles is there's a shared field of intertextured feeling. But not only is there intertextured feeling, there's intertextured identity. That's the other dimension of the definition of intimacy. Intimacy is shared identity in the context of otherness, we said last week, or so I hope, okay? So stay with me for a second. So if intimacy is a intertextured field of feeling when we feel each other, and intimacy is shared identity, so that means that this new emergence of intimacy, this progressive deepening of intimacies, has to produce this new field in which on the widest and deepest scale we can feel each other and be identified with each other. We call that, Barbara and I call that, a planetary awakening in love through unique self symphonies, in which we awaken to the realization that we are the new species of Homo amor universalis. Right? Wow. So what does that mean? Let's look at the wheel. Right? It says unique self synergies and symphonies, left side. Okay? And in the wheel, the second to outer rim of the wheel, it says unique self symphony, unique self jazz symphony. What does that mean? It means when unique selves come together in shared purpose, and they actually begin to act and play, right, and create together, then those unique selves create a new quality of social synergy. And social synergy is intimacy. That's what it is. Synergy means, right, we take, and let me now cite my beloved evolutionary partner, Barbara, we take what's already working. It's a phrase that Barbara's used so beautifully and so often for so many years. We take what's already working. We take the leading edge of what's already working and we connect them, right, in a new field of social synergy. That's what the wheel's about. What we've done, though, is we've taken social synergy and we've made two leaps. One is we've said that social synergy per se is an exterior, but its interior is intimacy. So we've actually realized, oh, social synergy is this field of when we're connecting what's working worldwide. So interconnectivity, this new connecting of what's working worldwide, that's the exterior. And the interior is, that's a new field of intimacy. That's a new configuration of intimacy. Now, we've given that social synergy, that configuration, a name. We call it Unique Self Symphony, but that's significant because what we're saying by calling it Unique Self Symphony is that it's not just the leading edge co-creators. It's not just the golden innovators. In Wheel 1.0, the place where we now have Unique Self Symphony had golden innovators. What we're now saying is it's golden innovators plus. So golden innovators haven't gone away. It's still there. You still have unique self innovators, leading innovations, right? You have first desire. That's the first wheel. Then the second circle is intimate universe, right? The third circle is planetary DNA and social synergy, right? Does it all begin to come together, everyone? Then the fourth wheel is leading edge innovations, which is Wheel 1.0. Then the next circle, like the fifth circle out, is unique self symphonies. So unique self symphonies say that the next stage of evolution, right, is actually dependent not only on the elite, not only on the leading edge innovators, not only on those good folks at Singularity University, but it's actually, there's a housewife in Idaho who's actually a single mother, and she has 3 children, right? And she's raising them in a unique way, right? And she's doing it in a particular way, and she's generating a new quality of education in the world. And so she actually is on the 6th wheel. She's actually in the Wheel of Cocreation. She's in the education box, and she's actually directly affecting the evolution of education in the world. Does everyone get that? Wow, right? That's a field of intimacy, meaning there's a field of intimacy, and the way I act in that field of intimacy as a unique self, addressing a unique need, right, in my unique circle of intimacy and influence, as a mother in Idaho raising her 3 single children, I affect the entire field of intimacy. And if it's about education, well, then I am in that box, right, in the Wheel of Co-Creation, which is called, right, education, and I'm actually affecting the future trajectory of education. Now, let's just think about this for a second. Sounds ridiculous, but it's not at all. I mean, actually, the very fact that you can go on internet, on Facebook, and talk about what you're doing educationally from Idaho, right, is shocking. That would have been just completely impossible to think about, right, 15 years ago. But of course, my friends, Facebook doesn't exist, right, in the source code generated by my friend Mark Zuckerberg, right, in California, right? Facebook is actually the face of reality itself, right? You don't need to be on Facebook, right, to actually impact the source code of evolution. You get that? Right? Facebook means face to face, right? Meaning I'm in my unique face. My face in Hebrew is my panim. Panim is my face, right? There's a beautiful word, right, which is a word which has to do with this Yom Kippur moment, which is that in Leviticus, in the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, I'm before God. And the word before is lifnei. So the word before is lifnei, pnei, which means both before and face. It also means to be on the inside, pnimi. So Hebrew reveals meaning through an economy of words. So the word, one two-letter root means face, inside, and before. So when you translate the biblical text from the Hebrew to English, Lifnei Adonai means before God. But if you really get it you really get the deep meaning, right? To be before God is to be on the inside of God's face. That's Facebook. That's Facebook, right? If that's you posted something, right? Every act we do, right, is a post, right, on the inside of God's face. But I'm part of the Unique Self Symphony, right? My desire, right, in expressing and weaving a configuration, whether it's in education or whether it's in government, whether it's in environment, whether it's in relationships, in any of the 12 sectors of the wheel, right, as a unique self who is a unique quality of intimacy, I affect the entire field of intimacy, and I'm holding, right, in my life a particular dimension of a memory of the future. So Unique Self Symphony is social synergy writ large in Wheel 2.0, not only the synergy of the leading edge co-creators, but the recognition that every unique self is a co-creator. And then we actually come together in Unique Self Symphony, which is the engine of the planetary awakening and love, which is the highest synergy, which is the only way we can respond to this pivoting point where the existential risks actually threaten to teeter us over into, right, utopia. So Wheel 2.0, last sentence, is the map of outrageous love. We started with the sentence, my friends. We live in a world of outrageous pain. The only response to outrageous pain is outrageous love. Wheel of Cocreation 2.0 is the map of outrageous love. The Wheel of Cocreation 2.0 is the map for outrageous lovers. The Wheel of Cocreation 2.0 is, right, the map which generates the emergence of Homo, amor, universalis. Right? The Wheel of Cocreation 2.0 is the methodology, the technology for generating the new human and the new humanity. It's the birth, right, energized, invited by our crisis.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So let's hold here.
Let's feel it inside ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Ah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mark. You know, whenever I have asked the universe, are there enough of us? The answer is there are exactly enough of us. It's all here. It's all within us. Thank you.
Mm.
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 Mm. Hey, Shalom. 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 And anyone who'd like to ask any questions or inquiries. Barbara had said to me that that was something we really wanted to do this week, which I'd be delighted to do. I tried to end on time to be able to do that. So if we'd like to do that, we're delighted to do that. And, you know, I'll leave it to the maestro, Barbara, to guide us.
Yeah, thank you. Well, what we usually do is just wait for people to want to speak on the chat. And if it's very powerful, they can speak direct. They come on. So who would like to respond or give a intimate expression of what just happened for you?
Or to ask a question if you'd like to.
Or to ask a question of Marc specifically while we have him here.
A couple people have raised their hands.
Okay, let's hear them.
Uta.
Marc, this is Ute speaking here.
Hey, Uta.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Marc, I have a question to you.
Please.
I'm a software engineer, so I'm very interested in Singularity University.
Yeah.
And already at university, I had a fight with my professor, and she gave me a bad marks in a course on artificial intelligence because I said a human being can't never be a robot because it has a soul. So what you talked about today, would you agree that it's a breach on intimacy if you're trying to create a biohack to have a, yes?
That's a beautiful inquiry. Thank you. That's a beautiful inquiry. So that's beautiful. I'll say two things which are really important here. So one of the reasons we have a hard time teaching computers to do simple things, right? As you know, in artificial intelligence, you can program a computer to do very sophisticated things, but to pick up a piece of paper is really hard, right? And the reason is because what a human being actually is layers of intimacy, right? Layers of quarks, atoms, molecules, cells, etc. And then when we get to the neocortex, the cognitive functioning transcends and includes, right, the other two levels of the brain, which include all the functioning of the body. What AI does is essentially bypass the transcend and include layered intimacy of human cognition and actually isolates the cognitive function from the intimate functions, which is exactly why AI is so dangerous. At the same time, technology itself is a form of intimacy, right? In other words, technology itself is parts coming together in new configurations of intimacy, right? The problem is that we view the parts as being only exteriors and not interiors. So I think what's most important is, I don't think we can stop AI, right? Because there's so many players in the AI race that if the good guys get out of the race, the rogue players are going to win, and it can be disastrous. But I think what we need to do is actually invest AI with intimacy.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Invest AI with evolutionary love. Now, how to do that's quite a complex question. It's not a simple question. What that means, because again, the nature of AI is that it goes to cognition and it skips all of the levels of intimacy that human cognition is based on, right? As there are no quarks, right? So it's a very complex, it's why Elon Musk correctly, right, was so afraid, right, of AI, and why AI poses, right, such a significant existential risk, right? But the point is, right, we actually have little choice but to actually engage AI and actually begin to, and this is kind of what I would call a kind of mystical invitation, right, which is to actually access the intimacy that's inherent in technology. That's a big sentence, all right? And how we do that is unbelievably important. So that's just a beginning of approach to your beautiful inquiry. Thank you.
Yeah, so my solution actually to do that is to have small groups that are accountable for the software they write, because as soon as there's nobody accountable with the software anymore, you get zombie software like we had with the Microsoft WannaCry virus.
You're absolutely right. In other words, You're absolutely right. In other words, whenever you get past the Dunbar number, whatever that is, right, and you no longer have a group that's accountable to each other, right, you actually risk, right, disaster, right, in generating software. So that's what I mean by actually building intimate structures into the way that we generate technology and actually infusing the technology with that sense of intimacy itself.
You know what, I think here too, there's no reason for us not to use AI ourselves and therefore infuse it with love and intimacy.
Right, and the question is how, right, absolutely, Barbara. The question is, of course, going to be, how to do that, right? And how do we actually, right, how do we actually get the intimate universe, right, which actually lives in what we used to call the insentient world, how do we actually invite it, as it were, to come alive, right? How do we invite it to come alive? That really is the question. How do we actually realize that it's sentience all the way up and down and make it come alive so it's not gas chambers?
You know what I think, Mark, then since we're saying this is awakening of the new species,
Absolutely.
This is a question for the new species.
Absolutely.
And it actually, I believe that great questions are what creates great answers.
Absolutely, love.
And I would like to ask us to consider this, because we're all considering what are our next steps in our work together. And the small groups is part of it, and the awaken the species and the connections and so forth. And I think it's a very intimate question.
Yes.
We could pose together, and also to use the high text with evolutionary love for the purpose that I personally think it could give us, which is the scope and understanding to make a change in the world.
Absolutely. And so that's Utah. Or am I pronouncing Uta or Utah? Uta.
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 So you're raising great questions, and I'd be glad to, through Barbara, be in touch with you offline, because that's a conversation which, Barbara and I had a think tank called the Center for Integral Wisdom and the Foundation for Conscious Evolution. And this is one of the major questions we're thinking about, and we'd be delighted to hear your voice. So please be in touch.
Thank you, Ananda. Thank you so much. All right. Is there another question that we have here, Sherwood?
A couple people have shared questions in the chat box, and Elizabeth has her hand up.
Okay. Elizabeth? Hello, Elizabeth. To put on your mic. We can't hear you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, can't hear you. Your mic.
Good.
You're on now.
There we go. There we go.
No.
Thank you. Sorry about it. You can hear me. I can't see anybody, but that's fine.
We got you. We got you.
We see you.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Mark. Overwhelming.
Thank you, love.
I'm really interested in the distinction you're making between the exterior of intimacy and the interior of intimacy. Because you had so much to say in 3 sessions, you were speaking about intimacy, and my sense is that we were hearing necessarily the exterior of intimacy. I felt interior intimacy as well, of course, but I think it's really an important distinction that you made, and that we are all clear about, that the interior of intimacy is the vital thing, and that takes time. Intimacy takes time. So that is a comment. Maybe you would say something more about that, but I thoroughly enjoyed it all, and it's been a greatly intimate experience. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I'd like to just thank you, and I'd like to say something just very brief about it, because I think what you say is beautiful, intimate, and incisive. And yes, you're of course correct that we use this time to kind of lay down the structure. And in some sense, I would say it like this. The exterior love is interconnectivity. The interior of interconnectivity is intimacy itself. Now, intimacy is created in different ways. One of the ways we create intimacy is through a kind of slow, spacious process. But there's also intimacy that's created. You're on the train in Manhattan and you see someone and there's this flashing moment where you recognize each other and there's intimacy is created in a flashing instant, right? We have a general sense that spirituality moves very slow and spaciously, right? Which is one face of spirit. But there's another face of spirit, which is ecstatic, alive, turbulent, tumultuous, and sometimes fast. And so I think we need both of them, right? But I think what Jean wrote, I think is really right, is that for deep intimacy to happen, we require trust. And trust takes time. Because trust is built by repeated encounters, right? In which we experience each other's steadiness and steady empathy. What's empathy? Empathos. We can feel each other in a steady way. And there's a certain kind of intimacy, which I think you're so beautifully right, which requires the trust that requires a spacious field of depth. So absolutely, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. These are wonderful questions. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? We have a few more minutes.
Fred.
Hello, Fred. Where are you?
Where is Fred?
I think he's coming. Fred.
Where is Fred?
We can't see you. There he is.
There he is. There he is. Hi, Fred.
Fred.
We can't quite hear you yet, brother. You got to flip us.
Now you need your mic.
Sherwood, do you need to give him the mic, love?
He's not muted, actually. So he may have equipment disconnection.
Equipment glitch.
Can you talk, Fred? Let's hear your voice.
No, I think Fred's got an equipment glitch.
Yeah, there's something on his end. It's not showing a microphone for him.
I got it. No microphone. Well, Fred, how about sign language?
Yes. Oh, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Hey, we got it.
Well, great to meet you. And
great to meet you.
I did ask a question about what is the driver of this whole process as a human?
Right.
So we talk about self-organization. We talk about, but what is the essence structure?
Yeah,
that guides us from one step to the next?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, simple structure. The driver is, right, the desire, the driver's desire. Desire is the core driver. And the desire is for higher configurations of intimacy. So the desire is, or another word for it would be eros. And the definition of eros is the movement, right, in human beings. It's the experience of being radically alive, moving towards ever deeper contact and ever greater wholes, right? That simple definition took me about 20 years, but it works all the way up and all the way down. Right? So the driver is eros, whose quality is desire, moving towards, reaching towards ever deeper contact and ever larger wholes. That's the driver.
Yes, yes. But that's very general. In my opinion, there must be, you know, the work of Varela Maturana.
Yeah.
The theory of enactment.
Right.
We are always kind of enacting kind of who we are, what we know as a human being. My theory is that when we were apes, there is this growing of intimacy by flea picking, And there is this young ape who is seeing his mother being killed, which in a sense kind of awakes a new impulse, which is, I don't want my intimacy to be disturbed. I want an environment which is less risky and safe. So there must be an individualized impulse for this bigger unity. And I see there's a very definite probability that the flea picking was this looking for intimacy. It has a very deep change. And it then, if that would be the motive, we are still on that journey to create a safe world. So that would be then the guiding motive that is becoming aware of itself in us, which is a more concrete way of looking at the whole picture. Because
I'm not sure why it's, I mean, with total love, my friend, I'm not sure why it's more concrete, right? In other words, when evolutionary psychology, which is one of the realms I've spent most time in, right, speaks of motives. Let's say evolutionary psychology speaks, for example, of survival, right? Survival and safety, two core motives. But what is survival? Survival is an exterior, right? Survival means I want to physically survive, but why do I want to survive? In other words, survival itself is a telos, right? Meaning it's a reflection of an interior.
Yes.
And the interior is self-love, right?
Yeah.
Now, I want to survive because, right, my existence has value, right? Now that I want to make contact with other people in order to survive, right? So that contact is, right, my survival, which is the generation of more and more life, right, is furthered and deepened by an ability to make intimate contact. So my sense is, I've thought about this for a long time, and there's a reason I don't teach through kind of the flea-picking evolutionary psychology metaphors, because actually they're not more basic. In other words, underneath it is desire, right? That's my point. It's a very big point. In other words, underneath all of evolutionary psychology, all of Pinker, right? And so Jeffrey Miller has written best about this, who's a new evolutionary psychologist. He wrote probably the best work I've seen in the last 20 years called The Mating Mind, who takes on that kind of thinking of kind of Pinker in that world. And what he's basically pointing out is that Darwin actually talks not only about, right, natural selection, but he talks much more often about sexual selection. And in Darwin's second book, Descent, he talks about natural selection twice, and he mentions 95 times in the index love, right? And that's been ignored by evolutionary psychology, which in its first generation is actually paper thin. And so when I'm talking about desire, I'm actually getting underneath evolutionary psychology, which I've taken deeply into account, right, for many years, and actually looking for a more basic, more fundamental drive, which is the desire for more intimacy, which transcends and includes the best of evolutionary psychology. It's a big conversation. I totally get where you're coming from. Big honor for it. This actually is more fundamental. Longer conversation, but I think you got me. I can see in your eyes.
Okay.
Take a look at Jeffrey's book, Jeffrey Miller, right?
Yes.
The Mind, and he deals with this enormously. And again, what we've done in the evolutionary psychology is we've put way too much emphasis on natural selection and forgotten about Darwin's second principle, which is sexual selection.
Yes, but I feel that Maturana and Varela also do that.
Yeah, Maturana does. That's so it's a bigger conversation that we can have here. But you're definitely in the right direction. I would love also to invite you, if you have a second, send me an email with some of the kind of basic constructs, and I'll respond to you. I really appreciate the inquiry and what you've added. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm sending you tomorrow.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you so much, Fred. Anybody else? We have maybe time for one more person. Who wants to respond here? Yes. I want to ask a question in here, Mark.
Please.
Which is, I somehow feel that evolutionary impulse inside me has purpose.
Right.
And I've said yes to it. And I feel that I'm on God's side and that God is wanting to go somewhere through me. So I always feel in partnership with that impulse.
Beautiful.
that is going somewhere that's greater than I could go, but I'm attracted to the partnership with the impulse.
Beautiful.
And I can get to be inside the impulse, but it's still greater than I am. So I wonder how that fits.
No, beautiful. That's really beautiful and actually unbelievably important because as you and I have talked so many times, beloved Barbara, right, in the kind of human potential New Age world, there's a kind of simplistic statement of God's inside of me. Well, and as we've said many times together in Evolutionary Church, yes, God lives in me, and God's also holding me. God's the infinity of intimacy that's larger than me. Mm-hmm. I'm part of a larger context, and if I wasn't part of a larger field, I'd get hopeless very fast.
Right.
But actually, it's the realization that there's an arc that, as Thurman, right, that tilts towards justice, that tilts towards transformation. Right. And I'm partnering with, incarnating, and being held, right, by that force all in the same moment. Right? Yes. And that's, I think what you say is so important and so powerful. And just the last image, and this is your Jewish genes, of course, right, that are coming online. There's a very beautiful, maybe we'll finish with this on my side. There's a beautiful, the way Hebrew text works is always a contradiction is a crisis, and the crisis births a new opportunity. So there's a contradiction between two verses. So the force of evil or suffering in the world is called Amalek, which is a particular literary incarnation, right? A tribe of people, but really it's a literary symbol. So in one text it says, Timche et zecher Amalek. You shall eradicate, wipe out Amalek. You, the people. In another text it says, Macho emcha. I will eradicate Amalek. So the commentators say, well, which one? Is it you? Is it the human being's obligation? Or is it I? Is it God? And the deepest explanation of the Zohar, Hebrew mysticism, is, as you say so beautifully, it's a partnership.
It's a partnership. It's so beautiful. And then the second part of that I feel so deeply, as for example, in my partnership with you, is that your impulse and my impulse strengthen each other. Yes. So you're in partnership with God in your way. I'm in partnership with God in my way. But the two impulses, and then the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth impulse, and the impulse of, let's say, this awakening new species class of hundreds of us, then I get the feeling of awesome power of the divine.
No, and actually the image of symphony, that's beautiful, love, and I could not be more with you. And the image of symphony is so important because the strings actually vibrate with each other.
That's it. That's why you use symphony.
Right. That's why symphony is so important. We actually vibrate to each other. And actually, when you play your instrument and I play my instrument, right, actually, right, each instrument becomes better and more beautiful and more resonant and more profound, right, and more powerful.
It does. And so the next thought here, we could end on this great, beautiful thought. There's enough of us, if enough of us are in a symphony, yes, there's nothing that could possibly stop it, because God is in everyone doing this. I mean, this is a symphony of the God force as it shows up in each of our heart's desire for loving more, being more, and creating more. So I guess I want to ask you this last question. In relationship to hopefulness and the despair because of what doesn't work, how do you balance inside yourself where your sense of, you might call it erotic hope, comes from?
Yeah. It's a beautiful question. And what I find is, love, is that, there's a little motion that I do when I walk around a lot of time during the day, and I'll just move the camera. I'll kind of go like this. And the motion is actually just to open my heart.
Uh-huh.
And in some sense, there's one question. There's only one question that we each are confronted with in really every moment. Is my heart open or is my heart closed? And it's really, in some sense, Sartre said the only thing we can do is say yes or no. I would say it differently. The only thing we can do is open our heart or close it. In every moment. And the only thing I can do in every moment is, even in moments of outrageous pain, is to keep opening my heart.
Yeah.
And every time I open my heart, I open God's heart.
Yeah.
And I open my heart, and you and I have talked about this in the late nights, so many times, right? It's always in little acts of kindness. And, little acts of integrity. And it's always the places in which are never going to be sung. Right? And it's, it's the cab driver. It's not receiving service from the waitress without knowing her name. Right? It's in those, and there's 1,000 moments. We all think that it's the big moment. And one of the things you and I did together in Wheel 2.0, when we moved from leading edge innovators, we included them. They're so critical, but we included unique selves. What we basically said is that every unique self who opens their heart and who feels their heart's desire, your beautiful phrase, actually is energized and strengthened in order to actually, right, mount the barricades and fight the great battle. And it's 1,000 blessings in a day, 1,000 points of light.
So beautiful. Well, Marc, we want you to know you're with us the whole way.
Thank you,
love. Not going to let you go.
Thank you. All the way, the whole way in this lifetime.
The whole way in this lifetime. Now, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to say next week, we're going back to the codes, 42 and 43, and I just want to read them quickly. Avoid the corruptibility that comes from breaking communication between your universal self and your mental mind. We know the universal self is that embodied self you're speaking of. It's the God self, of the mental mind. So that's code 42. Code 43, internalize the field of your whole being so your scattered attention becomes focused and coherent.
So, beloved B, I just wanted to ask you, because you had asked me before to remind you, so I'm fulfilling my promise. You had mentioned that you wanted to invite everyone, you were going to send everyone an invitation to Evolutionary Church.
Yes, I have that down to do right now.
Awesome.
So every Saturday, let's see, it's from 9 to 10 Pacific, and of course 10 to 11 Mountain. We have 1 hour free evolutionary church. And it's called the Church of Evolutionary Love. Our sacred story is the story of evolution. We are open to every version of that sacred story of evolution, but we have the most wonderful thing. We have sermons, we have resonance, we have prayers, ask for everything. We have deep discussions and responses like we do here on the chat. We have a collective where we're going to meet in deeper ways with each other. Of course, Marc is quite an amazing Hebrew scholar, and he's written the Radical Kabbalah, and I've written the evolutionary interpretation of the New Testament. So between the two of us, we are very deeply engaged. Now, Sherwood has put up the Church of Evolutionary Love. Thank you, Sherwood. You can click on that and you'll get the information. And we want to know if you're coming. I'd like you to email me so that we can say hello to you and welcome you, okay? Will you all do that if you come? Chris says the Evolutionary Church rocks. And I believe, along with Marc, is that the bringing forth of a church which can replicate in synagogues, mosques, temples, centers, but calling it a church, which a lot of people say, why a church? It's not a church. Yes, it is. And there's something about it that we're taking a stand for holding within a field the impulse of evolution collectively. And I believe it's the first evolutionary church we've had that is openly accessing the impulse of evolution as our sacred text. We want you there. We would love to have you there. And Marc says, Christine says, yes, Marc, what a question. Is my heart open or closed? What better way to bring ourselves into the present moment? Now, Jean, if she would sing us her version of a moment in the symphony of our evolution. Jean, please conclude with the song. Thank you so much for being there, sweetheart.
You asked the question of that when everyone was saying, I am desired by all of reality. So I'm going to sing that phrase or that sentence a couple of times. Then I'm going to let it flow into the vowel sounds, which are the fundamental frequencies of all that we perceive in reality. And with that intent, I am desired by all of reality. Any of you out there, you are also desired by all of reality. So sing with me if you're moved to sing with me. Just create the melody. And if you're not moved to sing, then listen, because you're the ones that are making it real. I am desired by all of reality. I am desired by all of reality. Oh, I am desired by all of reality.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I always wanted to have a church. I'm so happy. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Adam and Sherwood and Jim and everybody on this church for what we're bringing into form. And I'm so delighted now that I'm going to be with Jean. We're going to have a little special supper with John, and all is well here. Thank you, Mark. I'll talk to you very soon, and we all bless you. And lots of people, Mark, are already on the church, which is so lovely. Good night, everybody. Good night, Sherwood. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.